You're trying to figure it out.
There you go. Follow through. You promised and you followed through. Wow.
He's serving.
How fun.
I'll take a picture of all these.
Probably should. Well, we've had
That's a request. And I do like the second, so I have to take off.
I know, it's gonna be my first one. I knew it.
I think we should compromise Jesse. You say. Jesse.
Yeah, well,
I started putting up.
I think today is going to be one of those.
Yeah.
One, two, three.
We're supposed to be the military. He moved over from like right. Okay,
I'm in between jobs.
yeah.
So, like, it's just tired of yeah, I'm so
He's like, why does my head still intact?
Huh?
Dragon Ball Z. My dissertation's on it.
Man, you guys are so festive. I need to Google this.
This is really impressive. Are you all gonna go trick or treating after this? Because don't you have like?
No, I'm trying to present early so I can take it off.
Oh no, you're great. You look
It's
so
really
good.
uncomfortable.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, at least
Somebody
this,
got it.
like this part.
The wig part or the?
Well, just because it feels like it's gonna fall off.
You like this?
Great.
Pretty solid. You do look very good.
He said staple it on. Sorry.
Staple it. I mean glue, right? Like we don't have to like puncture his skin. Just glue it up.
Or that.
Oh my god.
Not as effective as a staple.
That's really good.
He's like,
You really embraced it. I love that. Wow.
It's gonna take me a while to get up there for my business.
It takes 5 minutes.
Can't call me over and not let me act over.
Right, right. Oh my word. What a great group. Because the second class of the day is virtual or recorded, right? Recorded. Yeah. No, Dr. Iverson was actually just going to do that right now. Hello, welcome. All right, so let's get started so we can move forward. Today, just to let you know, we are recording right now.
Oh, no.
Fortunately. So this is the day of all days. This is the day, Halloween, as we're all dressed up in costumes. So that's perfect. I love that. So try, I know we've been doing great so far, but try and refrain from profanities. It will be documented into perpetuity forever. So I'm just kidding. Yeah, so our presentations will be on YouTube for you to watch later if need be, but honestly, you can probably just ignore that it's here and just perform or do like you have been doing, and it'll be great. I think it'll be a wonderful presentation for us. We'll try and move through the material as quickly as we can. One thing I did want to mention, you'll see on the calendar, and I need to make these changes here because I do have more information now about the semester. So so on the actual days that we're meeting here, the presentation sign up, we're going to change the last day. So we still have Thanksgiving. We are still going to take that week off, which is the weekend of November 28th, or the day is the 28th that we would normally be meeting. I think it's, I forget the first day of the week, maybe 25th. Is that right? No.
27.
It's 27th. In any case, though, thank you. In any case, we will have that week off. Undergrads have that week off. Most of campus will be closed anyways. That said, though, it does push us back later into the semester. The 12th is our last day. So that is the exam week, is the 12th. So we don't actually have the 19th to meet on. So if you've signed up for the 19th, rest assured, you still do have a presentation, but no one will be here. So your presentation, then I'm asking you to record it. So record your presentation at any point between now and the end of the semester, and you can post a link to that. Now, my preference would be that you record it. You could set it to private on YouTube or whatever other video streaming service that you use, because uploading those types of files are cumbersome. It's quite difficult to do. So try and record it on some other platform and then just link to that so that I can navigate to it, and others as well. So what I'll do is I'll create a folder for all of us to submit those links to, or I'll put them all there. So that way you can look at those presentations and give feedback accordingly once those are submitted. So that's the plan right now as we're kind of moving through the semester and trying to navigate holidays and time off and all of that, and the end of the semester. Any questions or clarification there? It's the last week. Just as a reminder, that last week is kind of a catch-all topically. So whatever topic that you had signed up for, you can change it, you can keep it the same, whatever works for you. But that's any topic from the semester. I suppose you could branch out and pick any topic outside of the topical weeks that we've had through the semester as well. If you really had a passion for something you wanted to speak on, record that, post it on an assignment that I'll create in Blackboard, and then I'll put all those links in a collective folder for us to then peruse. So all's well? Sound good? Great. All right. It is Monday. Just a quick Monday check-in. Any fun things to report? I mean, you all look very fun. Anything?
Almost died.
Oh, no.
No, she did it. No.
Yes, I did.
Well, I'm glad you're alive. What almost killed you?
What almost killed me?
Because Kay, Luke, Delore, and I went to the 17th door, so we got electrocuted, suffocated, shot.
It was
Put underwater.
It's a haunted house.
Yeah.
No, this wasn't like
Just for fun.
it was a haunted house.
Right. I was thinking like a collapsed building. Like what happened?
No, they
Taken
put you
prisoner.
under, like, they put you, basically you're underwater, you're in a cage, and it like pushes you down to
Yeah.
where the water rises up.
You're
And,
supposed to open a lock
but it doesn't,
with a code,
yeah.
but even if
But-
you got the code right, it didn't open.
We
Yeah.
got me and Delore got the code right, and then we still went underwater. And I was literally looking back. This is stupid, but in the moment, I was like, "Help! Help!" And they were like, "Part of the process." But,
You might want to hold your breath. You're gonna need that air.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and shot. We got shot.
Oh yeah, we got shot at with
Yeah.
balls.
Paintballs.
No.
They weren't
Pink
pink.
balls.
Plastic little balls.
Oh, okay. Electrocuted, suffocated, drowned, shot,
Oh, and slap with a fish.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like
slapped with a fish.
And a pig head too.
This was, you paid for this.
And
for
you
fun.
went to
And this was for fun. Yes, and,
Well, my experience was not.
oh, yeah. No, they only cut your hair off, so.
I mean, better alternative than being suffocated.
Right. So is there a menu that you just pick which, like, suffering?
No, you just get all the
Oh,
above.
Angie paid for the Mercy Pass.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
That's what she said.
I think this is the weirdest thing.
I don't understand how this is gonna start lawsuit.
Yeah, like, I mean, they have to sign their life away, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
sure.
Yeah.
So what does the Mercy Pass do for you?
They just don't go as.
I want you to torture me, but not so much.
And I'll pay extra.
And I'll pay more. So many things running through my head that, I just will refrain. We have very different definitions of fun. Very
Rest.
That was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
right, like I said.
We got McDonald's afterward.
All right. McDonald's fixes all things, right? Like that's the great solve all. All right, so let's get started here. I want to talk briefly about like some of these articles because that was a request. So I'll give my like brief summations of these. This first article, it's the Katzenbach-Smith article about teams and work groups. So I'm sure there will be some presentations on this, but the key distinction here are we all talk about teams when really we might be talking about different things, right? It's the language issue. It's this idea that sometimes we're talking about a topic or an idea or a thing, but in truth, it might not map onto that idea, right? You're with me here? Makes sense? So they're working definitions. They are different things. And sometimes it's helpful in a conversation or in some type of group, or even in your groups as you're working through the consulting project or over the course of this program. It's okay to be in a team and it's okay to be in a work group. They are different, have different functions, and one may be aspiring to be the other, right? But your organization that you're working in when you graduate this program or sometime during or even now might not understand that. So it's actually a good stepping off point. And sometimes if you're leading a meeting or having a discussion with a group of people to say, what are we doing here? What are our goals? That'll help us dictate what we're tasked with, what we are trying to achieve, and how we might go about doing that. So that's the kind of part of the essence of that particular article. I like that they've delineated these two ideas and made them separate from each other. Because if we can have more definitive language around these topics or these issues, whether it's beyond just teams, but language matters a lot. It's very important for us to speak the same language. That's why I'm somewhat careful when I pick my words or choose my words to try and speak the words that I'm really trying to identify with. And sometimes if it's more vague or abstract, or if there's a common knowledge of this thing, which is how we interpret it or talk about it socially, but in practice or research or in academia, there's another way to define that thing, then I might stop and actually say, what you know is different than what I'm talking about. Like this is a different, by definition, thing, different word and different meaning there. So I think that's quite important and something that you might find some benefit of. The next article, I don't know how to pronounce this, Lencioni, I'm going to say. So that article, very important because we're talking about trust. We're talking about like vulnerability-based trust, trusting organizations. One of the big things of the Google Teams study, the famous Google Teams study where they did like tens of thousands, they're a big company, so they had tens of thousands of people in their survey when they're studying like what does an effective team look like, what does it comprise of, what are the main features that produce a team that actually can achieve more than other teams. Psychological safety, trust among your groups. So if you can achieve that, then all the rest has the capital to sort itself out. But if we don't have trust, if we don't have vulnerability-based trust, if we don't have some of these core elements of how we can actually feel comfortable enough to then speak to then talk to the people around us, the people in our groups, then we can't make progress. We can't move forward. We can't do the things that we're trying to do because we don't have the capital. And if you think about it in simple terms, and we've talked about this at the retreat and maybe in other courses before, other classes in your courses before this, think of it in terms of, I like to think very literally. So with you and in any relationship that you have, think of it as an account where you make deposits and you make withdrawals. A deposit is spending time together. A deposit is doing things maybe that seem torturous, but could be bonding in some way. A deposit would be all dressing up and going trick-or-treating or eating candy. A deposit is going out to eat together, going for a drink together, having coffee together. Those are all deposits. Talking about life and your fears and your hopes and dreams and like all those things and being vulnerable and sharing yourself, putting yourself out there. That's a deposit. The withdrawals, asking you to do readings. The withdrawal is asking you to do something that could be very anxiety provoking for you and giving a presentation on material that is dense and hard to communicate. That's a withdrawal. So if you think of that in terms of how teams can function, if you don't have the deposits already in the bank and you're trying to make withdrawals out of that by asking demanding things of your team, by saying like, we want you to be vulnerable. We want you to just put your crazy ideas out there, be creative, try these initiatives. Oh, by the way, if you fail, you might lose your job. If that idea isn't good, you might be looked down upon because we don't have that social capital to laugh it off or to acknowledge, hey, that idea was, I think, maybe plausible at a later time. Maybe it's not perfect for us right now, right? The way in which we speak is different depending on what that account looks like for us. That's an important feature of what trust looks like in teams. And so building that trust is one of the first and foremost things when it comes to new teams or entering onto a team. It's essential, right? It matters more than anything. And that's where I think a lot of the PsyD students excel. And they help us and teach us ways in which we can develop rapport quickly. They're so good at it. They're masters of this. And you could see it in their feedback. When they're up here and standing, I hope I've tried to identify this and I hope you've understood as well. When they're up here talking and someone makes a comment or says something that's deeply personal, like where they've had some difficulty in the past of like, oh, my former boss and I quit my organization because of this thing. Like, I'm sorry you had to go through that. I really feel your pain there. I'm sorry that that was an experience you had. And that must have been really hard for you. Like empathize. That's huge collateral building. So much rapport and trust can be built there. So if you're looking for more ways in which you could incorporate, like how do we build trust quickly? Because I was just meeting with a former student before this class, and one of the difficulties is in the trainings that the student is leading or the trainings that they're recommending, there isn't a lot of trust. There isn't a lot of capital. She's new. She's only been there a few months. So how can we develop trust quickly in a way that where you can receive it on the other end as an attendee or a trainee that's trying to like take in this new information for whatever, initiative the company's trying to achieve? How do we build that trust quickly? Instead of having everyone like stand up on a desk and like catch them, which is great. I think that trust falls are wonderful and all, but how do we do it in like a scalable way? How do we scale trust quickly? I don't have a solution for you there. I'm just asking that question because that's something we need to consider and something you want to build in yourself the capacity for. How can you build trust quickly with your audience? I think Brené Brown does it really well. She's like an all-star. Vulnerability, that she just tells these like personal stories, not deeply personal, like, ooh, that's too much, right? Not that much information, but being responsible in that vulnerability of saying, I struggle, or I'm not so confident, or I've had this experience where this thing happened. And this wasn't the result that I was looking for. I've made mistakes. Like, okay, we can identify with that. We've all made mistakes. We've all had missteps. We've all done something we're like, ooh, looking back, I don't know if I would do it like that again. That was a pretty serious mistake. I think I've told you about this before, and if not, I'll tell you again. Anyways, when I first got into my lab in Korea, I was tasked with like running this great, huge study. And so I developed all these different like conditions. I had 8 different conditions. My professor was like, it's like, wow, that's really big. And I was like, isn't that normal? He's like, no, this is like bigger than normal. It's like, okay, great. So he gave me lots of money. It was tens of thousands of dollars to pay the participants to run this study, to work with Sonia Lyubomirsky, which she's a huge figure in psychological health, positive psych and everything. And it failed. Like I failed miserably. It was horrible. I thought they were going to lose the contract with UCR. I didn't know how to analyze the data because it was garbage. And like, it was a big mistake that I thought was really going to set me off and maybe get me kicked out of school. I did not know what would happen. And looking back, it was just too much too quick. Like I was just so ambitious, and he didn't want to like bridle that enthusiasm. He just wanted to kind of let me run, knowing that this is likely going to end in failure. But it's a good lesson to learn. Like this is a valuable lesson that no money could really buy, that you need to have these kind of guardrails on. You need to have some parameters. And he also didn't know what I could and couldn't do. So he got to learn too what I was capable of. Apparently a lot less than both of us thought. It cost a lot of money. But at the end of the day, that wasn't his only resource. He had a lot of money in his lab, like millions. So it didn't really matter that much. The cost wasn't substantial. The learning was quite beneficial in that way. So as an example. Is this helpful? Yeah? No?
Mm-hmm.
Head nods? Okay. I'm trying to give you a little bit different information on the articles, like some of the article, but then a little bit more, because I don't want to like just take what your presentation is going to be about. Am I taking what your presentation is going to be about?
Yes.
That's okay though. You're adding to it right now.
I love the humor. Like I do. I mean, please be funny, vocalize, enjoy. Like if we're not having a good time, then I don't know what we're doing. So designing effective work groups. This was the Metzger and Higgs article. Campion, Metzger, and Higgs. Campion's like a really big figure in this team's space as well. There are characteristics, key characteristics to what these teams look like. And we can be intentional and strategic about how we build them. Part of that means we need to know what characteristics they already have, what strengths they have. And as someone that has an affinity toward data and assessment and measurement, I like to get that type of information, right? Solicit that information by putting some type of survey or information like out there. Like, here's what this team looks like. Rate yourself on your team. Where do you think you're doing individually as a team? What kind of characteristics and strengths do you have? And then we can synthesize that, get an average score and get some means of what their strengths are, what the characteristics look like. And in that constellation, if you think of it as like a constellation of data points, we can see, sometimes they'll do this like more like a hexagon. They don't do too many of these, but where they're on the perimeter is the maximum amount of points, like a pentagon or hexagon, depending on how many points you have. And then each data point is inside of that, and they'll draw like a little image connecting the dots. Maybe you've seen these before, and I'll show you in the future, like next semester, what these look like. But what I think is really helpful there is you can show them this at the baseline, and then have some training, some initiatives, some growth opportunities for them to push through some of these strengths-based initiatives, trainings, and see what that looks like after some time, right? These identifiable characteristics where we know what the effective things look like in a team. I mean, vulnerability and safety is one, but communication and a common purpose, is certainly others. And so we're finding like, okay, these things are the most impactful. And I typically look at the maybe 5 for the highest impact factor, or our like effect size, right? Practical significance, how much real power that these things have. Because if it has like relatively small, I think of like practical significance or effect size as like a domino. So each domino could be a different size. Like you could size them differently. And the larger the effect size, the bigger the domino. So if this one falls, it's going to impact many other things. But if it has really small effect size, it may kind of lean on some other aspects of teams, communication, or persons, but it won't be much. So that's why I start with like the top 5 typically. And then I'll, try and assess those and then work on whatever the team needs. So with that, we have some ways in which we could, and this is what I was talking to the student earlier today, have identifiable wins. Like one of the struggles is you'll have all these insights, you'll have a lot of ideas about what things might work because you're in this program for 2 years. You're going to be here and learning like all the great things that you can do. And then you'll be in an organization. You'll finally get that career job and that great salary and that awesome title. And you'll be like, I've made it. This is great. And then you have all these insights and initiatives. Like, I know if we do these things, it will work. They're struggling with their communication. They're struggling with their hierarchy and kind of this old guard versus new guard. And, they don't want to change, right? There's a resistance to change, but then there's this other group that really wants change. And I'm trying to reconcile those two groups together. And I know if they just give me this chance, I can do something really meaningful here. They're like, no, you've been here for a few months. You don't get that chance. Like, we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to do things that's going to upset the hierarchy or status quo. That's really hard. That's one of the biggest things our students struggle with after graduation, or even towards the end of graduation. When you're in these roles that get to have some influence, you're going to be restricted in that. They will not completely latch on to all the ideas or even listen to any of the ideas that you have. And that's one of the challenges. It takes some time to build up those small wins. And that's what I'm talking about in terms of that like little graph of like different data points. If you can show marked improvement for a team, well, there you go. Now you have some capital. Now you have something in your belt to say, look, I was successful in this way. We can measure success. I can identify it here. And this is something that was really effective for this organization at this time. Right? Okay. So these are really things to keep in mind as you're finding opportunities in your work. Sorry, I'm just trying to turn this stuff back on. Just looking at the last two. Okay. Diagnostic survey. What I really want to tell you here is something that I'm going to repeat to you later because it's more applicable at a later date. But I want to introduce the idea right now in that in this program, we'll of course cover lots of things. One, the consulting project that you're doing this semester is going to push you in growing areas that, you know, are challenging. But I would encourage you to look at these as opportunities for you to acquire the skills that you're going to use later. So whether it's a diagnostic system or survey for teams, or whether it's a way to conceptualize and communicate teams to people, all of these are like tools to put in the belt. Everything that we're talking about here is something that, yes, you might have a broad or kind of 30,000 foot view for, and then the expectation for us is that when you find yourself in the field of work that you really love and can use IO in, then you'll remember and like, oh, we did talk about this. I know vaguely, I kind of remember this reading. Go back to that reading and then, of course, add to it. Go beyond the readings that we have here when it's applicable to your work. We can't exhaustively say all the finer minutiae, all the details and the nuances of what it means for teams, because teams might not be what they're asking you to do. Maybe they're trying to, like, maybe you're really tasked with leadership training. Maybe you're tasked with virtual teams and that's what they want you to do. Maybe it's something totally different that we haven't covered yet and we'll cover in the future, like data analysis and interpreting like data to actually communicate to human beings, like people. Because they're like, what? What do you mean? R squared? What? That means nothing to me. Because then you'll run into a lot of people that just need it translated. Like, tell me what this means. I don't get anything you said. So that's an issue as well. So with these tools that you have, just keep in mind that over the course of this program, it's not that we're expecting you to be perfect masters of everything you've ever touched or read about. It's the understanding that we want you to be exposed to and have the knowledge of these things exist. And then when the need arises, that you'll be able to pull up these articles or tools that you have and then refine and use those tools as is applicable for you. That's good? All's well? Questions or clarification on anything so far? I'm going to be done here and then you can do your presentations, which I'm excited for. But we're all's well? All right, great. So I think the computer is ready. I don't know. I'm just assuming. If I minimize that, I think it's still recording.
That makes it pop up here. You're making
Oh,
it pop up
I
here.
was wondering why isn't it here? It's there. Do you want this?
Yeah, because we don't have the.
She sent it.
I can provide this to you.
Oh, she, it sounds like he has one. Okay, if that's the case.
Yeah. Okay, while she's setting up, was that helpful or would you want something different for like synopsis?
No, that's good.
It's good? Okay, what, yes,
I absolutely love it when you go over the articles.
yeah,
It's very helpful.
okay.
Like, and you have a really deep understanding of the subject, so.
Sometimes I like it.
It definitely adds like dimensionality to my understanding and my perspective when I'm coming from, so. I would appreciate it if you make this time. I know that
Yeah.
I got it on some days, but it's like really, really beneficial.
Oh, good, good.
It's like an executive summary.
Oh, is that what an executive summary is? Finally, we found
It's been a mystery this whole time.
out.
Honestly, everything else.
Part of the growth, I suspect. Good. Okay, so let me ask it in a different way because I want to I want to, sorry, if you're having a seizure, I apologize, but something that you can do as a leader, if you're like the leader in the room and you're trying to solicit like information from the group of people without influencing that information, a very accessible way to do that is to ask the person you're talking to, if you were in my position, what would you do? Because now they get to take on, they're not giving you advice, they're not telling you what to do. You've solicited this in a way that respects kind of both the positions that you're both in, and say, if you were in my position, what would you do? So I'm not asking for your critique. I'm not asking for like you to say like, okay, you're a professor for a day, what would you do? It's a different way to do it that's more accessible and actually likely to get things that you would feel comfortable saying to that question and not comfortable saying to a different question. Like, what would you do? Or I don't know, what am I doing wrong? But so if you were in my position, what would you do to like start the class off? That, okay, thank you.
Across like what we found interesting.
What you found
to make it
interesting.
more of a conversation.
Okay. I like that.
I remember in undergrad, one of my professors, every week would have us submit like 3 questions that we had based off of the articles, and maybe like asking us what questions that we had.
Yeah, I've done that in the past. Anything else?
The slideshow.
I think I would.
Yeah, go that right there. Oh, to the right a little bit. There you go.
An action.
Take them and this is what you can
Start from
do,
the
this is how
beginning,
you
so
do
just
it.
go down a
I
little
love that, it's empowering, it makes me wanna go out there and be an IO psychologist, even though I'm not going to, but it definitely
Yeah,
is
we have
empowering,
growth mindset, we
so,
can get
yeah, like, it's
Okay,
good, a lot of good energy.
good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything else? Okay. If you think of something, you can always let me know later. Good. Thank you. I'm gonna set
Down
up.
a little bit.
Oh, we might want to turn off the light. I'm gonna try and do.
Was working and then they fixed it.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Is that better? Minus this one. Oh, there it is. This is for me.
This is for you.
From?
Oh,
Thank you. What's up, pumpkin?
they all have little sayings.
I'm basic witch. No, she picked it for me.
So, what are you trying?
I'm understanding it like this. It's presenting it here like it's.
Oh, what if you brought that screen over to that screen and then?
Yeah, I'm gonna give up on that.
Army of angels over here.
So, are you the Blues Brothers plus one?
Oh, you could-
Blue That's us.
No! No!
Oh, Men in Black?
Yes!
Oh. Girls in Black?
Wait, where's the pen?
Oh, you're gonna wait my memory?
Here we go. Look right here, Doctor. You're gonna have to erase after.
That's how you should end it.
Men in Black or Blue
Oh, really?
Brothers.
That's how I should.
Right, say in the notes.
Abraham was supposed to dress up as the alien to go with it.
Oh, wow. That's a tall order, though. That's
Yeah.
a tough one.
Yes, especially the night before. Especially when I wanted to do.
Dr. Fuller, are you going trick or treating tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'll go with my kids.
Yeah, you're not gonna dress up as anything?
No, I don't think so. It would be great if I did.
Gryffindor.
Yeah, my dad goes as a retired football player every year. So, it's like cool, Dad.
Yeah. No, I think it'd be really fun.
It saves money.
Yeah.
I'm the only one that would want to do that.
Like this.
We get to do that?
What are your kids dressing up as?
A ninja and a zombie
I don't remember mine. Mine was just logged in.
I think mine is with my email.
Oh, like the.
The converter.
Sometimes they link them up there, like in the computer.
I don't know the password. Check it out. I mean, I guess
No, but they just.
That's totally good.
And the HDMI cord definitely doesn't work.
I need to get this spazzing out. All right, so we're gonna get this with no PowerPoint, and you're just gonna have to look at me in my beautiful Halloween outfit. Okay, so I wanted to talk today about kind of the different measures. Dr. Fuller just reviewed some of them, but looking at the Campion article and then the Wagaman et al. Article, there were two different. So there was the team diagnostics survey, and then there was a work group characteristics measure. Do you remember those at all? What, when you were reading through the articles, did you have one that seemed like, oh, this is really cool, I would use this in my work, or one that you thought measured kind of the effectiveness of teams better? Memory? No. Okay.
I definitely went and in the Campion article when it lists all those factors,
Yeah.
I was thinking of my workplace and checking boxes almost like, oh, this one yes, this one maybe not so much. Kind of went through and thought about it like that.
Awesome. Yeah, me too. Definitely. Thanks for sharing. Yeah. And then the Wagaman et al. Article talked about the team diagnostic survey. And then I actually went and I Googled it, and they had these really cool graphs, kind of what he was talking about with the pentagon, but it was a triangle, and then there were squares, and you were trying to get your team to maximize like all the awesome characteristics of a team, right? And so I thought this would be a really awesome tool for us to use. And in the article, it was like, this is available here at blah, 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 harvard.edu. Like, awesome, let's go find it. What I'm finding is that the tool has now been like marketed pretty heavily. And just to become like certified to be a trainer in this tool and to use it in your workplace, the most basic level of certification was over $1,000. And that doesn't even really provide access to like the assessment ongoing, right? That's just for one person to become a trainer, and then they have to pay separately for the organization to have access. So in that regard, it didn't seem the most accessible for us. So at that point, I was like, well, let's look at this Campion work group characteristics measurement. And that's the one that Abraham was talking about. So they had 5 main themes in their measurement that they were looking at, which, let me find my slide on. Guys, I even made my PowerPoint like graphics this time, okay? I've never had like pictures before. I put so much up. Okay, I'm just gonna hold it up like this. I'll see this, right? No, so the 5 main themes of a work group or a team that they were looking at was job design. So what are the actual tasks that you're doing? Are you able to self-manage yourselves, right? And then how much is everybody in the team getting to equally participate? So if you guys think about this in terms of our consulting projects, we're all in teams right now, or if you're in a team at work, I think it's really helpful to do what Abraham was saying, and kind of just like, how much am I participating in my consulting project, or how much do I participate in my team at work, right? Is it all equal? Are we managing ourselves, or is Dr. Iverson dictating everything that our team does for the consulting project? Then the next theme is interdependence. So this one, like it says, it's like how much we're having to depend on each other to get the work done, to meet the goals, to get good feedback as an entire team, right? So if we depend on each other and I really need Cody to do his work and he's not doing his work, I might be really frustrated with Cody. But if Cody's doing really awesome, then I'm happy because we're getting good feedback because of Cody's awesome work, right? And then composition, so looking at what makes who and what makes up the team. Do you have the different skill sets that you need on your team to get the different jobs done? Is there flexibility? Can only one person do like that one job? And then like if Abraham's out for the day, we're all screwed and nobody can get any work done. Somebody else step in. and step in for him and help the group get the work done and take that role on for the day, right? And do you have enough people to get the task done, or do you need more people, but not so many that it gets crazy and hard to coordinate all your activities? The next one is context. So that's kind of looking at your team and the broader organization. So the context for our consulting groups, right, is we're kind of on our own, and then Dr. Iverson is like a shepherd somewhere wandering through the fields. But we don't have like a ton of training. We're kind of figuring it out as we go. There is that support if we need it. We can reach out to him or to Dr. Fuller. And hopefully there's a general feeling of cooperation, like they want us to succeed, right? Lastly, the last theme was process. So potency was one of the main parts of the team process, which potency, does anyone remember what that was? I had to keep looking it up because I'm like, this word doesn't mean anything to me. Potency was like the group equivalent of self-efficacy. So the group's ability to like believe that they can actually do what they're setting up to do, right? And then the social support that you have as a team. Are you all working together? So one of the reasons why I really liked this measurement is because it assessed like how effective the team was from 3 different criteria. So how productive is the team? Like, are you getting the work done? Are employees satisfied? Are you having a good experience on this team? And then the last one was what are the manager's opinions, right? So do they feel like you're being effective at your job? So based on that, you can kind of look at like, okay, we're on a team, but like say for our consulting groups, I'm really frustrated. I'm not having a good time. Okay, so what are the characteristics that have the most to do with employee satisfaction then? We can look specifically at those characteristics. And so the Campion article broke it down, and they said that the team characteristics that were most correlated to employee satisfaction were that participation. So everybody getting to participate and give their point of view and be included in the decision-making process. And then also managerial support. So how much of that outside organizational support we feel is behind us. So depending on what the issue is, like if you're going into an organization and they're saying they're not getting any work done, fix this team, we can kind of use this measurement to say, okay, so that's productivity. Let's look at the characteristics that most highly correlated with productivity. Okay, so now I wanted to make this tool accessible to you guys because I, like Dr. Fuller, really love data and really wanted to like, let's actually put this to use. And like, we could do this survey with any of the teams that we're on. And like we're saying, then we can target like, oh, this is our weak spot. And this weak spot is correlated with low productivity. So like, let's find some way to build our potency, our self-efficacy as a team. And then we can do that and we can retake the survey. So I digitalized the survey and like built in a little scale for each of the questions. And then I made a handy dandy QR code for you guys all to have access to it, which you're now not able to scan unless it's around to everybody.
You could link it on any of the chat or any places.
Yes, cool. I can do that. So I just threw it into a Google Doc. So you guys can go in there and edit it, make it into a Google survey, print it out, whatever you need. That's all. Thank you for listening.
I really appreciate the effort that you put into your presentation, even though the technology failed. But you guys really went just about it.
Thanks.
Especially with the QR code in the end too, like literally just giving that tool to us all on a silver platter. I mean, we have to go around the technical.
I'm not even gonna charge you $1,000 for it.
It's only $200.
Yeah, $199 special deal for you.
$199.99.
Exactly.
I think you have a way of presenting that's always very comforting, very comfortable, and like it doesn't seem like a presentation. It seems like a conversation, and especially more so with kind of dealing with the mishaps of technology and not using the presentation of PowerPoint, I think that was even more so highlighted how comfortable it was and how just there was a conversation real tight knit. I think especially with the situation, what you could have done is maybe walk around and kind of interacted more so because you're not kind of bound to being around the computer. But always great job.
I just wanna echo, like, I noticed you have a lot of psychological flexibility. So you're able to be flexible when things don't go right, and that's really good quality, so, great, really good quality in the team too.
I like, I wonder where that correlates. I also just like the term psychological flexibility, so I'm gonna go around saying I have that.
I loved it. I think I really enjoyed the content. I appreciate the effort that went into the slides. I'm sorry we couldn't see them. I would think in that instance to either go one of two ways, to really like dive in and try and make sure that they're going to work here in whatever way that we need to do. So I think logistically what's working for the recording and for the tech that we're able to use is to, on Google Chrome, I'll sign in there and then, set us up to record. And then Microsoft Edge is also open, and then you can sign into your class Google Drive, I think, on Edge. I don't know.
That is what I had done. I had downloaded it on the
I
computer.
thought so, that's what I saw.
Yeah, but then PowerPoint like disappeared and it's not on any of the screens.
Right. So that's,
So
I
it
mean,
was-
we've solved like 9 out of 10 of the problems here. It's just that last like presentation mode
Yeah.
to get it to broadcast on this screen.
Yeah, but
as
then it
opposed to-
totally disappeared. Like
Right, right.
nowhere. on
Exactly.
the screen.
And last week it was kind of like that as well. So we'll have to try and get maybe IT or someone in here to demonstrate how that actually works. Because we need to be able to do that. And we'll see exactly what needs to happen there. So I would try and like, maybe Abraham, I think you said it, where if you don't have to use the computer,
Yeah.
then don't use it, just put it down. Like we can't see it anyways, so to then like draw attention to it is almost distracting. Where your content, the material, right? You did a great job communicating that. If you're trying to show us something we can't really see anyways, it's almost a frustration. It's like, oh, I want to see that now, but I can't. So you're raising the level of frustration of your audience unintentionally. So then like maybe more of an opportunity to walk around or to communicate or to do things a little bit differently. But I think you do have a lot of flexibility in that. I appreciate that you were totally unfazed or seemingly
I was
totally
testing
unfazed.
your psychological flexibility.
But you did a great job, given the circumstances were kind of challenging here. But I really appreciated the presentation you gave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. That one right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That's, yeah, there you go. Should I go over there? All right. Well, hey, everybody, welcome to the Wizarding World of Teams. This presentation is going to be a little bit different. We are going to be asking you to maybe move around a little bit, have some conversations between yourselves. We will be asking you to take a survey. So I just want to give you that heads up right now that that's coming. But first, a little bit of introductions. My name is Cody Taylor, known in select theaters as the Wicked Wizard of the West Coast. Includes California. I'm joined by none other than the prisoner of Azkaban herself, Annette Hermelin. And last but not least, Alexis Butterbeer Bustamante. I don't know if you saw him back there, but Dumbledore actually shaved his beard and joined us. So thank you. Thank you for coming out. But yeah, really appreciate everybody being here today. We will be starting out with a survey to determine your Hogwarts house. So go ahead and take out your phone. Take this. It should take about 2 minutes or so, and then we'll have some instructions right after that.
I just took it yesterday. See if I changed.
Go ahead and give us a thumbs up when you're done so we realize when you guys finish. Is it working?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to see what you guys were doing.
If you guys have no idea what something is, just ask us.
You got me on the first question.
Is that like you had me at hello?
I mean, that's a
It's
new
like,
word
what's
for
your
me,
name?
so they had me.
What's your first name? Right, if you're done, if you can actually stand up and maybe move against that wall, because we will have you guys moving seats.
Oh, we can go to their house.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's getting on nerves. I need to go super close. It's not working. Oh, there we go.
You know, you're a, what is it called? Muggle?
It's
You're just a human. You're not a wizard.
Well, I read the question.
I got a big laugh. You get this one, or just pull from the water? I got it. What's your place? Yeah. Gryffindor.
Slytherin, and then Ravenclaw.
Oh, yeah, I got Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I got Ravenclaw. Oh, what, you got Ravenclaw this one?
Yeah.
Slytherin.
What are you gonna do this?
What are you guys really want to do this exact one?
I'm adjusting.
There should be a theme.
I feel like it's like.
Alrighty, so we're gonna start splitting you guys up by houses. So Gryffindor congregates right here, right over here. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff will be over here. In the back will be Slytherin over there in the corner. And then Ravenclaw will be in that corner. So Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, I love it. And then Ravenclaw. There's no Ravenclaw. Where's Ravenclaw at?
Adam's the only Hufflepuff, or no, Ravenclaw?
You're still Ravenclaw. Alright, guys.
1%, right, I'm saying 1% off.
So, open to discussion. So we are actually going to be discussing employee engagement within the groups. So the situation is you guys are all external consultants. You've been hired to work with a local small coffee shop with 20 employees. We want you guys to talk amongst your groups and figure out how you're going to keep the employees engaged. So yeah,
go and talk amongst yourselves, and then we'll ask you guys your responses afterwards.
Okay.
Or is that what this group is?
Well, I just want to clarify. The difference between job satisfaction and so there's some confusion, but organizations often will.
Yeah, I know.
So job satisfaction spells it out, but how much you pay for it.
That's a very good idea, because saying that it's only 20 employees. So you could either easily feel like you don't care about it, or you have to see the same people. So building trust and
I'm in the consulting group. Consultant. It's really like just like.
You have some,
I think it's.
you have some like team building or like community thing.
Yes, and want to spend time.
Can I get it on holidays to like increase morale, do things outside?
But I would even mention right there, that slippery slope to job satisfaction, and how tied.
I like it.
Mutually exclusive. I'm not saying that. You said morale.
Yeah.
Morale and it's and it's not, according to BuzzFeed application, that's more job satisfaction.
And
No, I mean, you just get productive.
Right, oh, how easy is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it just, yeah, it like breaks down small.
That's true. My company, at least once a month, like fire and break and just like talk to each other.
I could learn.
Candidly, like to like just, you know what I mean?
And like talking about work, but also like maybe it's
I was thinking, see, that's a coffee.
Playing
Or
kickball.
PG. Like, what if it's like a monthly, like, make your own drink and whoever, like, everyone votes on it, and then maybe that's like the drink of the month.
Raven calls are ready.
Go ahead and take another like minute or so, wrap up your thoughts, and we'll come back together.
Superlative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was like group hugs.
Exactly.
No, it's.
My mom's company, where she works at, here, they bring like a fair.
How's the headmaster?
We do have Alice.
So all of these references, I'm just assuming
I think he's 150.
I'm guessing he's the second best like references.
Let's go out, children. You're most likely to succeed.
All right, like 20 more seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you come to 24?
24. All right, you want to bring it back? Yeah.
Alright, you guys appoint your speakers. Whoever's gonna speak up for your groups.
All right, guys, so we're going to go into what you guys just talked about. So let's start with Ravenclaw in the back.
Wow.
What was your guys' solution or what you came into?
The almighty game of kickball.
Woo!
Oh my goodness.
Actually, so I've been meaning to send this message in the cohort chat of we should all play a kickball game at the end of the semester, and it should be a semesterly thing.
Or Quidditch.
And we were saying since it's 20 people, we could evenly, 10 and 10, perfect, right there. And then it can be a very fun, maybe traumatic for some people experience, and it unites people with a good time. And then
Being in Ravenclaw, I like to shed some wisdom. Studies have shown that if you have friends in the workplace, you'll have a better time at work. So getting kicked with the ball in the face is the perfect way to bond. I'm sure all of us will make
Trauma
friends.
bond, yeah.
Exactly.
Very good reasoning, very rational. We're gonna go with Slytherin. What you guys came up with.
We came up with that like having a friend at work will probably boost your engagement. So having some kind of activity, like if it's a coffee shop, say on Sunday, it's more of a slow day. If there's a restaurant nearby, maybe some morning mimosas or breakfast before the shift starts. Whatever your preference is. I don't know.
Yeah. It is very. And then what about this is Gryffindor?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. What about you guys?
Well, we bring bravery, courage, chivalry, as they say. And we talked about Dr. Fuller talked about the difference between job satisfaction and employee engagement. Not that they're mutually exclusive, but that a lot of times when we like want to bring people if they have motivation to spend time at work, or if they just enjoy their job, and how can we maximize employee engagement. And so we talked about doing team meetings where people feel like they can voice their opinion and have their own ideas for the workplace, because they would be able to contribute and be creative in that way. So yeah, courage.
And Hufflepuff.
And we kind of reiterating a lot of what was already said. Felt like when you go and work with 20 other people, you're seeing the same people every day. And you would want to bring that positive emotion when you see those people and interact with them. So like they said, outings, we brought up ideas like superlatives, like silly things. We really want to encapsulate the idea of just being a child, you know, having fun, that childlike joy, doing like carnival games or silly team meetings and team activities in and outside of the workplace.
That's very Hufflepuff energy. So I guess a little bit about the houses if people don't know Harry Potter. So Gryffindor, you guys 10. This quiz isn't entirely reliable, but Gryffindor, like your answer was definitely more just like helping out those who may not be as like brave or courageous. Being like the one who's in charge. I can tell from the answers. Slytherin, you guys are very resourceful, having the mimosas or going outside of like the organization and going out there. Ravenclaw, the dodgeball was very an intelligent answer. It was unique. Kickball.
Oh, but we were gonna discuss the rules, your textbook beforehand.
Oh,
For,
yeah.
like, an informative speech.
Everyone
Not
gets
to
a,
say that.
everyone gets a PDF.
And then as a fellow Hufflepuff, I relate with that answer. Just being able to get that like inner child and just being able to have everyone enjoy everything. They're all there for bringing goodness and happiness.
I have a confession. There's an imposter here. She tested it off.
Do you want to work alone?
I have a bunch of me in my mind.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Well, we're not done just yet.
Appreciate your responses.
So I would love to just talk a little bit about diversity in general and kind of how it relates to the activity that we just did. So I'd like to conceptualize diversity first of all and kind of talk a little bit about what it is. Diversity is basically a characteristic of a group, of a social grouping, right? Reflecting the differences of the individuals within that group, right? Whether that be diversity in thought, characteristics, diversity of personalities, and of course, demographic diversities as well. One of the things of the reason why we put everybody into groups based off of traits from the Hogwarts houses was to try to put like personalities kind of together, to base together of similar personalities, similar thought processes, everything like that. Obviously, like Annette said, it's not a perfect means of selection, but it was meant to be a means of highlighting what can happen when we kind of put groups together based on similar kind of personalities and stuff like that. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the positive sides of diversity. If we're able to split up, groups like we just had and put more people into maybe mix the houses together where we had different traits kind of working together to solve that problem. A lot of research has been done into the positives of diversity. specifically two positives connected to diversity being decision-making processes, improved decision-making processes, and overall team performance. So basically, group diversity is connected to differences in information, knowledge, and perspectives to better facilitate that decision-making process within that group. That can happen through group-level exchange, through integrating different perspectives in the decision-making process. On the flip side, to talk about team performance, in a meta-analysis of demographic diversity, from 130s, basically a connection was established between team demographic diversity and team performance. So as you'll see kind of up on the screen here, the researchers in that meta-analysis separated diversity between separation, variety, and disparity. And basically finding a positive correlation between demographic variety and team performance overall, with negative correlations between separation and disparity. And so wanted to just highlight those two main positives of diversity in general and what it means in kind of a team setting.
Being a Slytherin means you're also kind of a pessimist. So the negative impacts of group diversity. So we studied the social categorization perspective. So that's essentially, even though we could be in a diverse group, we tend to drift towards people who are like us. We like people who are like us. So like in Hogwarts, they were all students, but they were separated into like similar groupings: Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, Slytherin, Gryffindor. So essentially, it's, even though you are in a diverse group, there's in-group and out-group. So people that you relate to, people that you like, and that tends to kind of lead to some competition, pettiness, workplace drama, whatever it may be. So even though it is mostly positive, we do want diverse groups within the workplace because it tends to not lead to groupthink. There are still those instances where it does lead to in-group, out-group. People are left out. People aren't necessarily happy. So kind of a suggestion for future research is like looking into what that looks like, when it's best to have people in diverse groups versus not, or when it's better for them to work alone versus working in groups, depending on what they're doing.
And then, so how can we promote more diverse teams in the workplace? First, addressing all aspects of diversity. So a lot of the times people look at diversity as what they see, so race, ethnicity, or gender. While these are inherited diversity, we need to also look at the acquired diversity. So that's diversity learned through experience. So being able to acknowledge that will definitely help with team dynamics. And then we want to practice empathetic leadership. So Dr. Fuller mentioned empathy and really showing that when you're with a team, because being able to understand and feel what others feel is super important, so people understand where you're coming from and why it's important to you. Providing leadership development opportunities, maybe if you're with a team, helping provide mentoring, coaching, even scholarships, educational opportunities, and asking teams if maybe they would like a networking event as well, so they can expand their network. And then listening to your employees. Listening is one of the most important characteristics that a leader can have. So making sure your employees feel like they're wanted, that you value them, and identify and eliminate any bias. So before even coming into a team, making sure that your recruitment process and leadership styles definitely hinder the bias, because there is unconscious bias. So we want to be aware that while we may not recognize that we need to set certain applications to maybe help hinder any unknown bias. And then the next slide is just for your joy. And thank you for this.
Thank you guys.
Oh, I didn't read the last one.
Oh my god, I just do so much. I don't know how I would survive.
Did you really put me under the bus?
How do you know? It was coming from my heart.
Y'all did really good. Are we?
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't know. I enjoyed the fact of just one, how you incorporated it with your costumes. I loved it. But also being able to speak more, us doing the activity first to be able to then speak more on why it is important to understand how, teams can work together, and then also seeing the complications or the difficulties of teams forming and working together.
Thank you.
I like that you guys came and interacted with the groups too. It wasn't like you just sat up there the whole time just watching us, like, okay, 5 minutes done. Like, you can talk to us, checked in.
Even our little group.
Of course, had to help out.
Especially our little group.
I was gonna say, stellar idea. I don't know. I just love it. Like all three of you guys individually are just such superstars. So all together.
Thank you. Oh, well.
2 hours later.
Whoops.
It looks like you're gonna say something, but you're not. He's like,
okay. I'm bummed Cody wasn't Ron. but it was really good.
Thank you for your input.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
I can't say I thought about being Ron, but yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I was trying to, there are 3 of you, so it's a lot of.
Oh, yeah.
I really enjoyed the enthusiasm with which you kind of bring to this presentation and how immersed you are in the experience of presenting with your full-on costumes, with the sorting mechanism that you used to reflect that, kind of celebrate the festive day. I think that was all great, really nice. One thing I would like to see is a more elaborate or more comprehensive explanation of the problem that you're setting out, to make it more explicit, to say what exactly is being asked of the groups, to give them either prompts or questions. You did give like a question, like what do we do? They want more engagement, what do you do? That's massive, right? And so my immediate reaction to that is like, well, I want to ask clarifying questions, like what kind of engagement are they looking for? Is it more job satisfaction, or do they really want people that are engaged, meaning that they are motivated, or that they want to do the work, that they are want to be there, that they are committed to their time of working while they're at that establishment or organization. Not that they like it or not. That's job satisfaction, which has overlap, but the key distinction in engagement, you use that word. So does that word reflect that? And then how many employees are they looking for? Are there any problematic employees? Why now, right? That's always my question with the consulting project, like why now? What is the motivation for change for them?
Yeah.
Is it some problem that happened? Did they have recently experienced a lot of turnover? Like what are they looking for? Even if you went to them and saying, hey, we want to consult for you, why was the first thing that came to mind for them engagement? What exactly is it? Because these are the things that no matter how great our response is and our recommendations are, they could be perfect. But if it's not what they wanted, if they weren't able to communicate that, and they won't speak the same language as you, as consultants and as IO professionals. So we need to solicit out that information. So getting more of that from them, from you, like in terms of what this organization exactly wants, would be helpful in that process of which we were sitting down. So now we're tasked with a specific thing, and then telling us exactly how much time that we have to meet and talk. Instead of at some point, it's like, okay, you got 20 seconds or a minute left. Like, oh, only 2 people or 3 people spoke so far of our larger group. But every group was a different size, so there's challenges. But I thought afterwards, when you talked about team diversity, and the whole purpose of this was to really celebrate, some of the diverse viewpoints by grouping us with some features, not necessarily that were validated for any meaningful way. Perfect, even better. Right, because they're not reliable in ways that they've grouped us. So maybe we are a very diverse group of people that think different. That we aren't similar in the ways that count or matter. So I think that actually made sense, but you didn't Like you didn't like tie that bow on it.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
didn't, like,
totally.
highlight that.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that could have been a feature that you said, this
Yeah.
isn't a bug, this is a feature, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to sort you in a way that wasn't this highly refined process
Totally.
Yeah.
because we want diverse viewpoints in your
Yeah.
group.
Yeah.
Haha, joke's on you.
Yeah, yeah, that would
So,
be good.
yeah, but that's beside the point. I think the presentation, the way you presented was really great. Everyone had, equal speaking time and highlighted different distinct areas of teams, and it was really fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Really, like this is not working. My name is Ashley, and I'm doing teams. And for this week's article, I enjoyed how the article discussed like the differences between groups and teams. Since I know I've had bad experiences with groups, so I'm glad with like teams, people are evaluated individually and then as a group as well. And then some of those values are encourage actively listening so that, providing comfort for people to express their needs in their groups, and showing that respect as well so that they feel comfortable. Volunteering and addressing things in their groups and advocating for one another, which is something that sometimes people feel that since they're a team, they think they're against each other, but remember that they're working together. Giving benefit of the doubt, providing constructive feedback as well, even if it's like negative or positive, and remembering to highlighting that great work since we always remember or we always forget to highlight the positive and sometimes we focus on the negative. And then one of the articles mentioned that 75% of employers report teamwork as extremely important. And since I don't mind the teamwork, I found this a little high, but it is something to take into consideration in case like if I ever open a private practice, then this would be something that I would add into that. Okay, and then I tied it together with the 4 stages of the psychological stages of the clock. And the first one is inclusion safety, where providing that safe space allows people to feel comfortable expressing their needs, and they also feel, well, like as human beings, we feel like being wanted in a group, that desire, like that human interaction. The learner's safety, we feel comfortable in making mistakes and asking questions, so providing, again, that environment where people can be themselves and ask questions where they feel like they won't feel judged. And then 3, contributor safety. It's that stage where people feel excited to use their skills and to make differences. And the last stage is challenge safety, where again, they feel comfortable in agreeing or challenging their team members. And I know that's something that I enjoy having in a team because then I feel comfortable disagreeing with my teammates, team members. If that's not available in a team for myself, then I notice that I tend to just go with the flow and agree, even though I might not agree, kind of like people pleasing. And then these stages are important because it provides, again, that environment for the team members and allows people to reach their full potential. That's it. Thank you.
Well, maybe not, please. So I think it's maybe recorded.
Just drag it.
Cancel that.
Oh.
I don't know.
I forget about that.
What else then?
All right, feedback for Ashley.
I like how you tied in your psychotherapy knowledge and let it be really interesting, also how you sort of used it to think about your own reflection.
Kind of bouncing off that, I like that you said that you didn't really have a great experience with teams, but you were still able to do a positive demonstration about the whole subject. Yeah.
Provides a lot of like that vulnerability trust, where you say, I haven't had great experiences with you. And everyone else here is like, yeah, me too, right? Like everyone's with you on that. Like we've all had experiences on teams where it could have been better, whether it was in academics or in sport or in some other venue. Not that it had to be a terrible experience, but sub-ideal, right? And we can relate and connect with you on that. And I do think it takes someone to admit or to say that, you know, it hasn't always been great. But I do appreciate the positive perspective on it and the almost prescriptive nature of saying, you started with not all experiences on teams are great, mine included. Psychological safety is one of the key ingredients to making it better. And you went through the process, the steps or stages of it, the ramifications or consequences of those, if done well. And so I think that really lends itself to kind of this prescriptive nature of like, if you're having a problem with your team, trust and safety, psychological safety are probably lacking. So how might we address that in your group? And you can't say in a presentation, you can't prescriptively like say like this is the initiative or this is the facilitation or this is the thing for you, but just to have the notion in your head that if you're on a team and it's not going well, the first thing you should probably try and build more of through some structure, something, right? Some task or some objective there is safety. You could look it up, right? You could look up 1,000 different things to increase psychological safety in terms of what that looks like in task. But to have it on the forefront of our minds of the association that we should have, teams, psych safety, those things need to go together. And I appreciated that for you. Obviously, that's a clear, right? That's a clear through line that you draw there. I don't think that is the case. Maybe we've harped on it enough in here, but I don't know if that's the case in any team that you're going to be on or have been a part of. So I'm okay with being redundant in that. I'm okay with repeating myself many times and saying, teams, psych safety. That's where we need to go with this, almost every time. You could always use more psychological safety on the team. So I liked this. I thought it was very well organized and clear, really simplistic, like almost formulaic, right? So I appreciated that really accessible nature of it. Thank you, appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. Before we start this discussion tonight, I kind of want to keep things fun and light. So I wanted to play a game with everyone. How the game works is I'm going to show you a picture of someone and you have to guess who it is. Now, whoever guesses it correctly will receive a Halloween treat. So
Okay.
Rules are is that you have to raise your hand and you can't shout out the answer. Does everyone understand? Who's that? Yes. Yep. That's me at 8 years old playing soccer with some some busted bangs. For those that don't know this about me, I love soccer. I've played soccer for most of my life. I played in high school, I played in clubs, I played a little bit in college until I got hurt. And I've really just enjoyed every single second of it. So why am I sharing this with you? Well, for the majority of my life, I've been part of a team. And being part of a team is where I really learned everything. For example, I learned how to relate to others. I learned how to deal with adversity and support one another. And most importantly, I learned how to win, but be humble in it. So now that I've shared with you an experience of me being part of a team, let's look at what a team is. Okay, so a team is a number of people who work together to accomplish a shared goal or purpose. So each team is a sum of its own parts. So what that means is that everyone on the team relies on one another to achieve the outcome. So for example, if you have 9 girls on the field facing one direction with one ball and a goal to carry that ball to a designated area so that everyone receives rewards, you would have a team. So now I share with you what a team is. Let's look at some of the advantages of being part of a team. So there's many advantages in working in a team environment, one of them being a focus on collaboration. So what this means is that when individuals are part of a team that values individual contributions, people feel more motivated to speak up and to participate and to share what they know with one another. So for example, according to a Stanford study, individuals who work in collaborative settings at work are more than 50% more effective at completing tasks than those who work independently. Another advantage is that it's really good for problem solving. So one researcher found that group size of 3, 4, and 5 outperformed the best individuals in the organization. So looking at these advantages, what it tells me is that the more people that brainstorm together, the better it is at producing results and outcomes. So now we talked about the advantages. Let's look at a model that can help build a cohesive and effective. One of the most interesting models on team effectiveness was developed by Patrick Lencioni. I can't say that one right. Basically, he stated that every team has a potential of being dysfunctional. In order to have a well and functioning team, you have to understand the different types and levels of dysfunctions. So one of the levels of dysfunction is the absence of trust. So trust is critical on a team. It is the foundation of a team. What it requires is that everyone gets vulnerable with one another, that they open up about who they are, what they're good at, what they're not good at, and if they made a mistake. So without trust, you cannot build a team. But more specifically, without trust, you can't overcome the second dysfunction, which is the fear of conflict. Now, you see, conflict is not like only okay or good on a team. It's necessary. It is required. People need to engage in conflict. And when there is trust present, conflict simply becomes a passionate pursuit of the truth or the best possible answer. So without conflict, we're going to encounter our third dysfunction, which is lack of commitment. When teams don't engage in open and honest conflict, that means that they're not really most likely going to commit to the goals that they set themselves. They're going to be more passive. So in the lack of commitment, people are kind of unaware of the direction of the team or their priorities. So commitment is really when everyone buys in because they've weighed in onto the decisions that they've made and they've all agreed that they're going to stick to those decisions. So without commitment, we're going to encounter our fourth, which is avoidance of accountability. So accountability is very important on a team. For example, without accountability, if we can't hold each other accountable, then we're going to encounter our fifth and final dysfunction, which is inattention to results. So you might say, well, people aren't paying attention to the results. What are they paying attention to? Well, maybe it's not the collective results of the team that they're paying attention to. Maybe it's the individual needs of that person. So like recognition, they do certain things so that their status can get higher or their ego. So it's very important that a leader sets the tone for results and that they kind of reserve rewards and recognition for only those who truly contribute to the achievement or to the team's goals. And overall, like I said, I believe in teamwork. I think it makes the dream work. And in order to have like a meaningful and lifelong career, you have to learn how to work well with others so that you can grow as an individual and be a good team player. Thank
Drag it back on.
Another group presentation.
I really liked how well your information flows. Like you're really good at naturally introducing the next topic and just kind of flowing right into that. And then I like the practical use where you made it more digestible, especially for like I think this would be like the perfect for like the board directors who don't necessarily know the concepts, but you made it like relatable and easy to comprehend. So great job.
Yes. I like that you used soccer as like the way to describe teams. It's something that's super relatable. I think it's an organization that's super clear and easy way to understand like what direction you're going.
Thank you.
I know. Something you said that I appreciated and then made me think more deeply is that you said you've been on a team for most of your life. Then I had to think like, well, how long have I been on a team? And I would say all of my adult life, in one way or another, I've been on a team, right? And I can't imagine at any point until I retire that I won't be on a team. It's going to be the most consistent part of my adult life, professional. I mean, there's personal stuff, of course, I'm my family, but in terms of what I can always count on, that I will be part of a team. There will always be other people that I will rely on to function in some part of what I'm doing. I think that element in and of itself gives so much credence, so much power to this idea that teams really matter. It's unavoidable, almost inescapable for us to acknowledge the importance and then to pay more attention to what makes a good team, what the key elements are that lead to success, how do we amplify the things that work well and reduce the noise from the that don't. So I really liked that. The metaphor that soccer I think is great. I think it's personal and it rings true. Like this is me, right? This is who I am. And this is a truth that I can tell you. And I appreciated that because it just rang so true. Like, yeah, you've played soccer, you've been on a team, but we've all been on teams and we all will be on teams. And so I liked that. And then you walked very nicely through the highlighting the benefits and where the resources and support comes from, what it looks like, to be on a great team, and what are the key ingredients there. So I think that was really nice. And it just made me think more deeply, right, on the inescapable truth that teams are there, whether we like it or not. Let's find a way to do as best as we can on them. I think that was really nice. One thing I would recommend, like tape an X on the floor and just stand on it because you were pacing a bit, which the caliber and the level of your presentation was so high that small thing made it seem like, oh, she's above this. Or like you're so much better than that. That's just a distraction. If you reduce that, then like the whole caliber of this whole thing is like, wow, she's a really great presenter.
Yeah. The walking's anxiety I'm trying to shake off.
Understandably so. And that's not you alone, right? That's a lot of people, everybody. But if you could find a way to plant yourself, and I think your delivery and ability to communicate is really good. You're an excellent speaker. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you
And a gift. I mean, how many presentations have a gift associated?
I think one of your kids are watching.
I know it. They would
I
love
won it
it.
and I was like, what am I gonna do with
Well,
this?
no, it's very thoughtful, but if I bring home one gift, that's
Oh,
problematic.
yeah, that's true.
My son would just be like, it's mine, no questions asked.
Right.
Yeah.
Fists start
Yeah.
flying.
You just walk away, it's like, there's no fight, just. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's amazing because they said second. I'm not gonna be like,
Recruits! Everybody stand up! Stand up, stand up, stand up! And now sit back down, sit back down, sit back down. And stand up again, stand up again, stand up again. And sit back down, thank you so much. Excuse me, sorry. Welcome to our presentation. This is about team innovation, past, present, and future. Okay.
So you guys, my name is Kay, Cadet Kay, as you may. A little bit about team innovation, but the first thing that I kind of wanted to bring attention to is team adaptation. That's where this theory kind of comes from, as far as with the team, you come together and you have a dynamic group of people that come together and are able to adapt themselves to be able to create a team that works well together. With team innovation, it is mainly from creation and implementation of new ideas. With that, any type of issues that may arise, being able to see the problem, create a way to solve that problem can basically be a precursor for team adaptation. So one of the things, as you see, we are all kind of a part of the military today. The biggest thing that we all know is IO psychology originally came from the World War I. So with that, I kind of looked into 3 innovative strategies that they use in the military. With that, it is going to be challenging the status quo through ambiguous times without guidance or direction. So one of the things that happened in the military was someone decided to forget a gas funnel. And with that, instead of the captain saying, you know what, let me fuss at you, argue to you about you forgetting this, they decided, you know what, we're going to be innovative and make a gas funnel out of duct tape. The next one would be having a diverse thought. So back then, they used to use a M60 gun, machine gun, and a lot of the times it would jam up. So one of the innovative thoughts that they decided to, or ideas that they implemented, would be putting an empty seed canister to their belt, and that reduced the amount of times that their machine gun would jam. And then lastly, creating a legacy to have success and being able to build off of that. So what a lot of the Marines did was look at past history from what worked in the military and what did not. And they decided attacking from behind has always led to greater amounts of them being able to take over their enemy. So now that we've kind of talked about the past, we're going to bring it into the present of how teams are innovative.
All right, everybody. My name is Captain Carpenter, but you can also call me Pilot Puke. I've been looking at, or I did a lot of research on what present day team innovation looks like. And I compiled a bunch of terms that I felt if you're going to assemble a team, you want people that represent these 8 terms, or someone that's really strong in one and it can grow in the other one. So first up, I have drive. Drive can also be described as grit. It's the hard work to push through, to persevere, people that are willing to work together, but also not shy away from conflict and work through it together. I also have disrupt, which normally is associated with negative connotations, but in this case, disrupting the workplace is boundary breaking, and it's thriving in ambiguity. And by disrupt, maybe you're disrupting like the inherent way of approaching problems. So you're thinking of new ways to solve new ideas and coming up with new ideas, which is super great as well. I also have create up there because I always think it's important in whatever phase of life to embrace your creativity. In the workplace, that can seem boring, but I think it also can be problem solving in creative ways as well. I put down here that creativity goes with novelty seeking, and with us research, we are constantly looking to find out the why in things. Next, I have connect, which is pretty self-explanatory. You want to network in wherever you work, and you want to figure out what the resources are around you and who the resources are around you. Team building and maximizing your social intelligence within your workplace is key to team innovation. And it's also is good for, you know, navigating a complex organization. I put up control as well, because especially in our consultation project, there's like, not that there's a lack of control, but there's so much that we are learning and discovering that it sometimes feels like we've given up control, and we're just kind of like going with the flow and doing what we can. But I think when we embrace the ambiguity and we find the little parts of it that work, and we maximize those, that can help us give a little bit more control, at least in my mind, to our projects. I put think up there, which is pretty self-explanatory as well. Just maximizing your information capacity. And I also noticed in team innovation, it's important to have someone who can recognize patterns with the team and maybe either change the patterns if they're unhealthy or maximize the ones that are really good. And think also applies to reflection. Someone who's taking notes on what's going well, what's not going well, or reflection can also help the future as well. Deliver and give go hand in hand together. The give is for the motivation to have, I want to word this right. The motivation to make the world a better place and to work with the people and embrace the good. But deliver is all about contextual orientation. It's about maximizing your resourcefulness, but you also want to be adaptable to deliver the right results. So yeah, now that is currently what it kind of looks like to develop a team innovation present team, we're going to go to future with Agent Abe over here.
Agent Abe. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so we're going into the future. And when I think of future and innovation, I really think of what? Technology. Starting from the left side for you guys, I want to talk about how these big companies, Google and Apple, how they tackle this problem of innovating, team innovation, making it unique and making a stance on what they do and adding that into their company culture. So there's 9 principles of innovation. I didn't want to put them all on there, but this is number 1. The very first part of their innovation is innovation comes from everywhere, anytime, and from anyone. Now there's a story in Google. It was not the creative team where they pulled these ideas or the marketing team, but it was actually just a doctor, a staff member in the company. And using the interface, searching Google, they found they had a moral concern that when you search up phrases along with suicide or self-harm, there's these things coming up, and why wasn't it the help prevention line? This idea just from a staff member in the company was brought up, and they changed that. So even if you search today, there'll be a hotline for help, right? And these similar ideas where ideas come from anyone and from anywhere is similar in Apple's functional organization. You guys know organization charts, so you can kind of take a look and see for yourself. But when Steve Jobs came back into Apple, one of the things he did change was the organization and how it goes. So these are all different departments, not just creative teams and marketing again. All the different departments and their specialities, they all are connected in the sense that they could upstream their ideas or upstream any feedback into the CEO of the company, listening to all these ideas from anyone at any time. And thinking of innovators, and especially in our field, I just thought of our beloved Adam Grant. And this is actually from LinkedIn, so it's on there for anyone. But looking into it, one thing he says, I want you to just focus on the top part where he says, when groups meet to brainstorm, good ideas are lost. People bite their tongues due to conformity, pressure, noises, and ego threat. One thing Adam Grant does mention is that people a lot of times are ashamed of their ideas. Maybe it's a dumb idea, it's not smart enough, it doesn't match the creative capabilities that they want. But he says the best ideas, 85% of the best ideas go unheard. So in this next bit, when we do it, or when we Cadet K introduces an activity, I want you to not just accept reality, but be creative, speak up on those ideas, and really innovate the future.
Alrighty, guys. So I want to do an activity and kind of test your innovative skills. So what we're going to do is I'll have you guys to break off in about 4 groups, and then we are going to pass you out an item. And pretty much the biggest thing is you can't use the item for what it's originally used for. So you have to come up with some other way to use this item. You have to make it good too.
We're gonna get 2 minutes to deliberate amongst ourselves, and then you're gonna make an elevator sales pitch to us for 30 seconds about what the item is now. Yeah? Everybody good? Thumbs up? Okay, cool.
Questions, and if not, if there's smaller groups, we could jump in as well and get amongst you guys. But you guys could group up with whoever's next to you. And actually, there's 4 items, so 4 groups, please. Whoever makes the group first can just come up and claim whatever item they like as a team. So it's first come, first serve. A little bit of urgency.
The chair is out.
The chair is out.
Wait, one thing.
All right, your 2 minutes starts now.
It's really an object. Yeah.
That's something that in terms of like.
Like flour, so it's like it's stuck. We could like open it and put some more flour.
See, that's why
Just be next to your ear.
Got 1 minute left. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be good.
if it's not good, you're kicked out of class.
Perfect.
It's already set, I'll just like beat you up on my plane.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, very nice.
Actually, if you side on me, that's all. All right, guys, 10 seconds left. All right, guys. So is there any group that would like to go first?
I guess
We'll take ruler group up first.
Ruler group.
All right, Bill.
Willie.
Being. We'll go up front.
Stage is yours.
That being Mr. Willy Wonka himself, I'm walking around all the time, and this old plastic cane does me no good. I've got my new cane made out of wood that can hold my weight the whole time as I'm walking, giving out my golden tickets.
Okay, as Violet from the same storyline, she chews gum, and there was something missing from that meal that we were eating. which was pizza. So we introduced to you the flour flask. Have you guys ever been making pizza at home and then your dough just gets stuck on the counter? Yeah, so if you open it, there should be flour in here, you can just dump it and then continue to roll.
Situation.
Yeah, and so 2 in 1, and then your pizza would be great.
Team chair.
Okay, so you guys might think this is a chair, it's not, it's actually a trolley. It can hold up to 300 pounds, we believe, and it's movable. Sometimes your back hurts when you're when you're on campus, so this will hold all your textbooks or any heavy objects, 365 rotation.
360.
Up and down. Yeah, also adjustable in height.
That was the other.
That's the
And then my clicker group, Daisy Beaver.
It looks like a clicker, but it's not. It helps you speak time. Are you on a bad date? Just skip, 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 skip. Traffic, skip, skip, skip. You be happy. What else is it? Oh, people should have, yeah. Avoid class of this one, but other classes skip.
Well, thank you guys so much for doing our activity. Hopefully you liked it. We would like to ask you a few questions on, I guess, your thoughts of picking your groups. How was the dynamic in your groups? Anything that you would like to share?
We had a good time. It was all laughs.
That's some great ideas.
We brainstormed. We had like 4 different ideas, take to one. So
Did you feel like, did this give you hope to work with these people again?
it absolutely did.
Perfect.
Yes.
They're cool.
Amazing. Did you feel very innovative?
I did.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's what we're here to do.
Yeah, definitely going around, it was a lot of, we all know each other, of course, but a lot of ideas being shared. I've heard input from every person, not one person just staying quiet, and just the laugh and having fun. And we think this is something that we could implement. You guys could implement in the workplace using random things. The activity doesn't have to be so in depth. That it's just something for culture building and changing, introducing ideas in a more digestible way. Right?
Yes.
Whose idea was that?
Oh, yeah.
I think your idea was the best one.
Only the person that thinks they want to do it. So we're the best, right?
Also, there needs to be a think tank and you need to go and try it.
We don't have a gift like. But it's okay.
Right.
We say flower wins for $1 million.
Oh.
Flower flag, sorry. Thank you.
It's
Is your lollipop dry now?
Yeah.
I just wanted to leave with a quote from Theodore Levitt where it says, creativity is thinking, but thinking up new things, but innovation is doing new things. And like we did right here, it's just not about just thinking it, but it's about applying the teams that we made together just to see the diversity and different ideas and the dynamics that we'd encounter, not just learning it, but putting it into action and doing it. Thank
I love the actionable content, having us break down into these activities and then not only wrapping that up to reasoning why, but how we can apply this into organizations moving forward. Because that is something that I would 100% want to do for employee engagement and all that. So I just really love you guys are great.
I really appreciated how you broke it down into past, present, and then future. I think it gave it a different element. It just made me think of it in a completely different way that I think I have before. So that's great.
Where'd you guys find that activity?
I I'm an activity queen. No, it was actually something that we did in like high school, middle school, something like that, and I just thought of it.
Yeah, I like the activity a lot. I thought that was a cool one. And I like the talking through innovation at the beginning and then kind of having that as a backbone for like the idea, I think was powerful. So yeah, good overall. Great overall.
What?
Good, great. Wonderful. Wonderful. Amazing. Yes.
We don't want it back. It's okay. You got it.
This is mine now?
Yeah.
Fuller's like, what?
Saves.
Two things. Oh, are we ready? Was there any more? I'll wrap it up. Okay. So the activity is I just read an article on this like earlier today. So that's the divergent thinking task, which is great. These are creativity assessments that they've developed. There's a new one that's out. It's called the divergent association task. It's relatively new. And that's where you think of like, they have a couple where you think of as many words as you possibly can. This one is derived from, you think of as many nouns as you can, 10 nouns, not as many. 10 nouns that are as dissimilar as you possibly can. And it's similar to a task like this where you're trying to come up with as many ideas as you can that are not the same as the primary use of this item. So they're all really good uses for assessing creativity. So that's one of them. And I think it's very usable in that way. So that was great. Having an activity to do as a group, I think is generally pretty fun. The one thing I will say about that is you showed this little snippet from LinkedIn from this guy. I don't know, he's vaguely familiar to me, Adam Grante something, I don't know. But so you had his quote and his recommendation for how to actually facilitate this type of activity, and then you didn't do it though. Right? His recommendation was have everyone write it down. Write it down so that you're not influenced by anyone else. And those that don't normally speak up get a chance to input something new instead of being corralled socially into like, oh, that's such a great idea. And then we just get wrapped up in this one idea. To generate as many ideas as possible, we actually shouldn't talk to each other primarily in the beginning, right? In first instance, we should write it down as many as you can for 10 seconds or something, very brief. And then everyone shares what they have. You're going to get far more in terms of volume of possible ideas, and then you could discuss the merits of them, but that's what he was talking about. So I was a little bit confused, like you say, hey, this is this great thing, and then we didn't do it. I was fully expecting to like be facilitated in that thing, which is okay. The other thing I would say in recommendation, like just building up better presentations, is to not look back at the screen. I know it's tempting, we all do it. Try really hard. This isn't only for your group, but I'm just mentioning it now. To not look back at the screen if at all possible, especially when you know the material on the screen. Like you knew all those words there. You didn't have to look back up there. You had your very fun like notepad that perfectly on like in the like atmosphere of the costume, right? Like this fun little notepad. It was cool. But you didn't need to look back for that. And I would say with that also, the way that you speak about your own content needs to be a little bit more authoritative. You're the authority in the moment right now. There's not, and I feel this might be definitive. These are the top 10 words associated, or top 8 associated with the concept of teams in the modern era, right? Like that's more definitive, more authoritative. Instead of, these are my words, I just came up with them. It's like, where's the authority figure there? Like there's no consensus, there's no support, there's no empirical evidence. Like make it more definitive so that we're giving our time, we're trusting you to be the authority here on this, be that authority. So use that language to convey that. I would say those are the two like strong things that I would say like would just strengthen it even more, or maybe 3 things. So if you're going to facilitate with a specific thing, follow that facilitation. Try not to look at the screen if at all possible, and speak more authoritatively when you're presenting for all members. Like that wasn't specifically for Luke, that was everybody. But I liked it. The theme was really fun. I loved the past, present, future. I think that spin on it was great. The activity itself, I think is a great facilitation for anybody to use. That's a really good one to have. Yes, it assesses creativity, but it just brings us together with having to be vulnerable and like just put ideas out there of like, no one's an expert in using it something that's not what it's intended to be used for. So that puts everyone in an equal playing field of like, you know, nobody's using this hammer as a hammer. We all have to think of it as something else. So I like the activity for that purpose of kind of bringing us all together and generating new ideas. I think it was really fun. I think you all did a really good job. Thank you.
I just wanted to make sure everybody has one of these. If you don't, I have extra. And there are how much back there as well. So I'm gonna start by asking a question. So do you guys think that good mental health is a basic human right? Anybody have any differing opinions? I remember when I took a public health ethics class, that was a question we had about public health, and I thought it's a good one because some people don't believe that it is a right for everyone to have good mental health. Nearly half, that's 60 million women and our children and adults who are living with mental health conditions in this country do not have access to care or do not have treatment. So it's a pretty big problem still, even though we had the Affordable Care Act, which the goal is to connect people with integrative care services that included mental health and substance use compensation. So what is integrative care? It's also referred to as interprofessional healthcare, and it includes a high degree of team collaboration and communication among healthcare professionals for holistic treatment of patients. And the team can include the patients, the families, their psychologists, their social workers, care coordinators, psychiatrists, medical doctors, and the list goes on and on, translators. Last year, I worked in a integrative care system. It was a hospital, and there was a lot of people that needed care there. And I was on the outpatient side of the hospital, where they had several clinics, internal medicine, and high-risk pregnancies, where they treated women for prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal complications. And we used our team used this scale here to screen, and it is a pretty common screener that's used in medical settings. In fact, it was developed for a medical setting. It's a 9-item self-report measure, as you can see, and it is used for provisional diagnosis. So each item corresponds to a criteria for major depressive disorder. So the nurse would give this to the patient when they came in, and the patient would fill this out. And then if they had severe symptoms on this, if they had like suicidal ideation and they were experiencing a lot of distress, then someone from the behavioral health team, which is what I worked with, would be called, and it would go and give a consult. And we work very closely with the doctors and then do like a risk assessment for suicide and that sort of thing. So some of the benefits of integrated care for women of high-risk pregnancy is improved service and delivery, and also the patient care and safety. So there is like a lot of knowledge out there in the literature about the positive aspect of treating the whole person. Some components of successful teamwork processes and interprofessional care include individual attitudes such as skills, expertise, and role perception. organizational, contextual factors, and institutional culture. So those include like institutional support, standards, goals, resources, and those kind of things. For example, we just had 2 therapy rooms and there was like 7 of us. So you can see that we had to do therapy in places like that weren't originally meant for therapy. There's not like a soft, comfortable chair. It was oftentimes in the patient's like room. And then, so the institutional culture also includes mission, values, goals, visions, and beliefs that drive the collective perceptions and collaboration. So like they served a lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless and a lot of super poor that had, Medi-Cal. And so the patient population was very like the most vulnerable people. So another aspect is interpersonal variables. So that's like team compensation included like diversity and heterogeneity of skill, team clarity, goals and objectives, and collaborative reflection with the team. So reflecting on strategy, decisions, and processes. And I think one of the most important skills is like we talked about it, you shared with us and other people shared in their presentations, is trust. Those are the professional variables that make integrative healthcare effective. And so trust between and within like the different professions. And I don't know how much time I have, but I wanted to share a really quick story. One day I was asked to do a suicide assessment for internal medicine, and I ran over there and the doctor was like very nervous. I could feel her like anxiety because the patient had said that they had a suicidal ideation. So I went in, I did the check, I like found she had a lot of protective factors. She was going to see a mental health provider in like a week. She was schizophrenic and she was like having episodes recently, and she had all kinds of different things like trauma from her childhood and stuff. But I felt that she was safe to go home. When I came out, I told the doctor, I think she's okay. And the doctor had like barricaded her in the room and she was actually needed to go to her job. So I was like, I think she's safe to go home. And the doctor's like, you don't know anything. And I was like, what? And I just stood there and looked at her because I didn't know what to say. I was just thinking, oh my goodness. And she's like, started to raise her voice and yell at me. I just like stood there, just like looked at her. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh my goodness, I know who you are. I've worked with you before. But she totally didn't trust me. And she was afraid that like, I maybe said she's okay to go home and then she would commit suicide and then she, might have a lawsuit on her hands. So trust is really important, that you trust the people that you work with, especially in these settings. And the last thing is, what can you do to help? Well, in your field of IO psychology, obviously consultation, service training, quality improvement for places that already have it, and then also doing research on integrative healthcare outcomes. There's not enough of that. And then integrative healthcare program planning and development for places who don't have it. That's all. Thank you.
Well, I want to share that I really love to hear like the real world work examples. I think it enriches this class a lot. And I also think that I love that you basically brought in the team elements to something that is going to serve the clients more so. Because at first, when I was listening to you, I was so fascinated, but I almost didn't make the connection of the topic of teams. But you raise a great point that it's like not only do healthcare professionals always have to work in teams regardless, I think a lot of times they're siloed. And what I heard from you was kind of the pitch of like, that's needed even more so. And it's quite literally could be life or death, but it's better client outcomes if there's a team. So it's just, I really appreciated that perspective. And I feel like
Sometimes I've not gotten great health care and I get frustrated and I give the feedback to like certain health teams to be like, why didn't it transfer over? And I've like learned to advocate for myself health wise, but I always think, and I'll tell them also, you know that another young woman may have not said that. So, you know, you're not giving very good care. If you all are not talking to each other, then you're doing wrong by me. So I like your topic.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that too. That's some serious insight because a lot of people fall through the cracks and they may come in and they may get help, but they may not. You know, screeners like this are very helpful. And then also the team that is totally committed. It's those values, going back to those basic factors that create this collaborative on this organizational or structural level that makes it work. So there's so much more that can be done. You guys can help. So thank you.
I really appreciated the handout. I think it's really good. The scoring rubric on it is very detailed. It's really detailed about how it's scored and what things constitute as different levels of depression. So it's obviously a very thorough assessment. It's quick, right?
It's
10
so
questions, or
quick.
nine questions. So I thought that was really good as something like tangible, like a physical thing we can hold and see. I really appreciated the whole dynamic of like, okay, teams are this, they're really important, the structure is like this, the value is that, all of it really quite quality content, really nice. I think it really touched off with your story, how the lack of confidence in a coworker in that example is quite severe. But we don't know what the downstream effects will be depending on our organization or the structure in it to see what is it going to be? What are the results going to be? What are the consequences going to be? And not everyone works in a hospital setting, so it's not always like a singular person that this will affect in their health or their health outcomes. But depending on our organization, we could be in groups, we could have life impacting results for people, even on a larger scale. Where you know an organization or a product or a thing might not be developed properly because of the lack of trust or confidence in that team. And so I appreciated that. Did it resolve well after she recognized who you were?
Oh yeah, she reached out and said, I'm so sorry. And I said, oh, don't worry about it. You know, we all make mistakes because we had to wear masks. But I mean, even if she didn't recognize me, she sort of still respected me. But I'm a student and it said, my badge also said medical student. It didn't say like behavioral health, psychology.
Right.
So she thought maybe I was like, because medical students are different, they rotate through. And so I don't know what happened, but yeah, I don't hold, like,
Sure,
you know,
but
it's like.
but in the sense that it's a great story in that once there was an identified relationship, like, oh, I've worked with you before, oh, I actually know
Yeah.
who you are,
Yeah.
you're not the medical student that I thought you were, you're a health professional that actually has expertise in this,
Yeah.
and I can trust your opinion.
Right, yeah.
So I think that speaks volumes to the story that you
Yeah, and there's a lot of like hierarchy stuff, like there's like surgeons, they're like at the top, you know, there's a huge hierarchy in the hospital, and you know, when you come in, you don't have legs, you're on the bottom because you're just a student, so you gotta be careful how you navigate. And humility is the best route, I think, because you know, I'm there to learn, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
Appreciate
you.
So hi, my name is Naruto Uzumaki. From a different timeline in the multiverse didn't treat me well. I gained a couple pounds because of burnout. After my job as a Hokage. But now I'm here, I'm going to try to talk about teams and the applications, and along with my personal experiences going through teams growing up, being a ninja in Team 7. So first off, the content, what to expect. Once again, what is a team? what is a good team and what kind of makes up the characteristics of those teams and the circumstances that surround those teams. The difference between a working group and a team, which was kind of spurred by the idea of last week's presentation from Melanie from the Lord of the Flies book. I wanted to kind of delve into which situations do we need to put these actual groups out there? And then how do they apply on the business sense? So the first off, what is a team? The Katzenbach article said a team is a small number of people with complementary skills who are committed to a common purpose, set of performance goals, and approach for which they hold themselves mutually accountable. And I think that is one of the key terms that you're going to see throughout the course of teams in general, is the idea of mutually. When you get into the idea of work groups, it's more of an individualized type of setting versus teams, which the purpose, the goals, everything is set by the team. So some characteristics of good teams, versus having that clear purpose and goals, you can use it in specific goals, which build upon each other, those small wins, so that you don't get not dismotivated on the path to the bigger goal. And then the performance goals, which are used purely to keep you going. So those are the big ones that keep you going. So skills, and this is where it's big. I think it's key in the sense of you need to find the perfect mixture for each situation. Not every business situation are we going to find ourselves in, or is everybody going to fit themselves to a T for that situation. So there are going to be times where you might have new members entering your group, have members exiting the group. And in my case, Sasuke did betray us. And we did bring in another member who fit better for the time. Growth opportunities, and the idea that growing alongside each other is going to be the way forward. And how this correlates to the business, the benefit for companies is that, as we're going to kind of talk about later, one of the ways that you can teach skills has been teams. You could see it as kind of a ladder. And as you come up, you might stumble and fall, but you have other people to bring you up. And through this and through going through your goals, you're able to find out each of your specialized strengths, weaknesses, and build a better plan from there. So kind of going back to that idea, I've been thinking about this since last week, and on that concept of leadership, and how Melanie discussed the Lord of the Flies, and how I wanted to differentiate between which situations, well, not so much differentiate, but I wanted to highlight that different situations require different types of collaboration between people in the workplace. So one being obviously teams that we mentioned before, and the other being the working group. And so some of the characteristics of a team versus the working group is that the working group has a clear focus leader, individual accountability, and efficient meetings, versus the team, which has shared leadership roles and shared accountability and open-ended meetings that involves discussion that could remedy the problem. Now, to look at these both, I want to kind of tie it back in to the previous presentation, like Melanie's presentation on it. In certain situations where things may need to be solved faster, you can look at the working group as maybe the more effective outcome, as generally speaking, they get through their work faster because there's one person delivering the purpose, the goal throughout the entirety of the group, versus the team, which has to work on it with each other to develop that sense of purpose, their goals, things of that nature. So it's up for management to decide on the production level what is better for each specific situation. Applications to businesses, these are just like personally, as being a ninja, but personally for me, on the team basis, this demonstrated how I was able to learn new skills through the help of my comrades here that was teaching me how to, walk up a tree. And the resident healer of the group, Sakura, she's not here right now, but she was the expert on chakra control, and she taught both me and Sasuke how to walk up a tree. And on the broader goal, the village hidden in the leaves, which is in essence our employer, they have to do a good job at delegating each team to each specific job or mission, as we say, and also to encourage that healthy level of urgency for teams within these goals to meet certain deadlines and to signify like a healthy level of stress and competition between all the teams. Kind of like to end off, I'd like to end off with a quote from Andrew Carnegie. It says, "Teamwork is the fuel that allows common people to produce uncommon results." And the idea of that is very special to me because I have never viewed myself in any way as being a particularly special person with particularly special abilities, but that allowed cooperation with other people and that ability to even eclipse the results of even these specialized people, it's a great idea and makes me hopeful for my future in IO. That's why I'm like half Naruto, half consultant. Thanks.
I really enjoyed it, just being able to, especially with teams, being able to see like, you saying, Village of the Hidden Leaves, being able to say that would be our employer, and basically saying, you know, how a mission would be, you know, our task for the day or whichever the case may be. But it was just nice how you were able to make that relative for those that may watch anime and may watch Naruto versus those who don't, just being able to give a simplistic way of explaining why this is important to teams and what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it was great. I don't know much about Naruto, but that didn't take away from the presentation for me. I think even the connections you were making, I feel like I was still able to like latch onto them and everything. So I think it was a great way, kind of, I guess, to build off what Kate said around like incorporating everybody who maybe have some experience and then people that maybe don't. So I think it was also great, like you just putting your own personality into it as well. I think that ties like I think that just makes everybody more engaged, right? So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, this one was kind of hard because it was like a specialized topic and it's the first one I presented, so like I was kind of like stumbling a little bit. I think I needed time to like catch breath.
No, I think you were doing good with that though, even too. I could tell yourself like just like slowing down. And so I would imagine you were probably feeling that way, you know, in your head, but it was coming off well of like, you know, you recognize that and were slowing yourself down so like you wouldn't get kind of caught up. So overall, I mean, it was good. good presentation. I don't know where I'm going with this. Good. It was good.
I really enjoyed your sense of humor. You're very likable, and so like even though I didn't resonate with the ender or examples, some of the examples I didn't understand at all, but it didn't take away, like you said, and your humor is just like really, it's really intelligent.
I'm glad that happened because, you know, I just laugh in my head and I'm like, I don't know if anyone's gonna laugh. Like I know the references, but I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, really. I think walk up a tree is just funny to kind of anybody, so good there. And then of course, you know, any type of self-deprecating humor is pretty good. Half consultants, half ninja was really fun. And that was your biggest laugh. So they were all really good. I agree. Your sense of humor is wonderful. The examples are really good. I have no idea what Naruto is, or I mean, it's a show, an anime. Like I get that.
They're a team of ninjas.
A team of ninjas. Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a really fun, unique vantage point to present from, and really capture the idea of a team, members of the team. I also thought it was quite nice in a way to then say part of the quote is like this common people doing uncommon things, like as a group. right? And that's what the data support, that's what the evidence in the article suggests, is that, you know, a single individual can produce something, but a group of 3, 4, or 5 can produce something better. Not just more, but better. And I think that's something we often take for granted, that of course our assumption is people that are grouped together can do more in terms of quantity, but they can also have greater quality. And I appreciated that vantage point. Like, I don't consider myself anything particularly special, but I'm encouraged by the notion that collectively we can do something great, right? That it doesn't take any single person or act of genius to do something truly remarkable or world-changing in small incremental ways. And I think that perspective will get you really far. It was a very humble perspective, but I have a lot of respect for it. The presentation itself I thought was really good. I would try and like venture out a little bit more in the future and try and look a little bit less and you know, present, just gather more, right, with us, so that we're more accessible in that way. That would be my only recommendation. Other than that, you paced yourself well. You seemed very calm. Even if that wasn't your internal state, you externally were very calm. So well done there. Thank you. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
It was so good. I don't know why it takes. It might be.
It's probably do you have it connected to your laptop?
Yeah.
That's probably the reason why. Did you send it to the CPU?
Because I don't use an adapter. Is it on the, did you email it to?
I did, yeah. So I can.
It's like we're going trick or treating.
Yeah, we're going trick or treating. This is a lot for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're gonna team, look at that teamwork.
That was teamwork.
So a lot of the language in my presentation is going to revolve around managing and leading teams. And I know that some of us, but not all of us, currently have formal managerial roles or supervisor roles in our workplace. But for those of us who find ourselves somewhere else on that spectrum of formality, I just want to remind us, as was mentioned earlier, that we all find ourselves in team contexts in many aspects of life. And in this cohort, we are a team. In your consulting projects, we're operating as teams. And so we will find ourselves in many environments with which we can take some level of managerial responsibility or step into some level of our leadership influence, whether it's formalized or not. And so as I go through my presentation, I would just encourage you to try to extract the value that you find practical and relevant in your specific context, whether it's the formalized workplace or otherwise. I think some of the principles and takeaways in here will translate across that spectrum. Let me start with a reflection question. You're managing your teams, but are you leading them? This was a question I was forced to ask myself after my first year in my new management position. My annual performance review had just come up, and it included a section of anonymous feedback from my teams. And the feedback was not very impressive. I was over-delegating tasks. I was micromanaging my teams. And to some of my teams, I even came across as unapproachable. And this feedback left me surprised and very disappointed in myself. And I found myself asking why my teams felt this way. No.
Are you good?
Why my team felt this way? We were getting our client engagements done on time and within budget, and most of my team members were getting strong evaluations from me. And then this is when it sunk in, that I had focused more on producing results than I had in developing my people. And so after some self-evaluation, I met with each of my direct reports, and I was transparent with them about the feedback that I had received. I apologized for making them feel this way and expressed my genuine desire to grow from it. And together, we were able to come up with clear expectations and strategies that allowed me to hold them accountable, but also enabled them to run their projects with discretion that would allow them to run them according to their unique strengths and goals. And so though my managerial title remained, I had now stepped into my role as a leader. Because this moment of vulnerability and honesty produced a significant amount of trust and synergy with my teams that we benefited from for many years afterwards. In that season, I had to face the reality that I was managing my teams, but I was not leading them. And what's the difference? Here are a few takeaways that I discovered in that experience. Managers focus on directing their teams. Leaders focus on serving their teams. Managers communicate a task, and leaders communicate a vision. Managers prioritize the project, and leaders prioritize the person. In the end, leaders are in it for the people, and great leaders understand that getting trust out of their people will ultimately get the best results out of their people. In 2017, the Harvard Business Review did a study on trust, and the results show that people at high trust companies reported significantly greater results on almost every meaningful people measure. Less stress, greater satisfaction, more engagement, more productivity, less burnout. And so the results are clear of what happens when people feel that they are in a safe, trusting atmosphere and dynamic. Patrick Lencioni says that the first and most important step in creating a cohesive and functional team is the establishment of trust. Specifically, as we've discussed, vulnerability-based trust. And so how do you establish a foundation of vulnerability-based trust? He says, you must be willing to acknowledge mistakes, weaknesses, failures, needs for help, and also be willing to recognize the strengths that exist in others. And most importantly, the leader must demonstrate these behaviors first. So practically, what does that look like? I love the phrases he included in his article. It's saying things like, hey, I screwed up. I was wrong. Or I need help. In my case, hey guys, I'm sorry, right? Or looking at someone and saying, you know, you're actually better at this task or this part of the project than I am. Will you run with it? Without establishing vulnerability-based trust, Lencioni says that teams will be unable to engage in unfiltered, productive conflict and feedback. And so with this in mind, I've adopted a few self-reflection questions that have helped me just be more intentional about trying to cultivate this type of trusted leadership within team dynamics that I find myself in. Have I asked my team how they're feeling lately and genuinely listen? Am I creating moments of authentic inspiration to help them stay encouraged? In what ways am I empowering my team, not only in their personal and professional growth, but also in their personal growth? And am I ensuring that my team feels connected to the greater mission that we are setting out to accomplish together? Our teams need to feel valued, inspired, and empowered by us. And it all starts with us as the leader. Oh. Our role requires us to, and my closing line. Our role requires us to manage our teams, but will we give them the additional value of being led by us? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I really liked your perspective, like taking it from not just teams, but who influences the teams, who impacts the team, because that's just as important, if not more, because who are teams without their leader? And I, again, like enjoy like you as a person, but also as presenting your ability to ask thought-provoking questions always. And I'm like, oh crap, I didn't even think about that. And like require in-depth thought and not just like a path through of knowledge. It's like, no, like what do you think about it? What's your perspective? So I enjoy that you always take like a different, you look at things from a different lens. You do great.
I feel like you had really good flow. Like there was like a transition from slide to slide that was just so easy to follow. And like starting off with like, you know, vulnerabilities and what you did wrong, and then going through that, both reflecting back every time, and at the end ending with self-reflection. Yeah, just really good flow. It was super easy to follow.
I appreciate your ability to get the audience to look inward. I think you did that with the last presentation too, and it's really good because then it like you look inward, and then by the end we're looking outward again and how we can be a better team member. I think that's really good presentation skill.
I wanted to say this is a comment for you, but also for a lot of people that presented today. One of the things we learned about leading is kind of being vulnerable and or sharing personal stories to build that trust and with others. And I think you did that really well, kind of going back on like quickly just making a point of that story that you now shared with us and we could understand. So I thought that was really good. Just wanted to say you kind of choking up at the end made me really happy. It was so good. You had us all really, really engaged just to see that you could have, you're human too. But another thing I wanted to say, point out, I noticed your PowerPoint. A lot of visuals, not too much text where it's not needed, just the perfect amount, and having the pictures and things like that, it's a big improvement and it looked really good as well.
Yeah, I thought you were choking up, but I can tell. Like he's like, is he about to cry? Is he not?
I really appreciated how you intentionally made a mistake at the end to show us, to really exemplify the I screwed up or I'm sorry. Like he did that for us. It wasn't, I think that was scripted. Everything was so scripted, so perfect.
Leadership.
Yes. Leaders admit, I made a mistake. Let's move forward. I screwed up. And this is what that looks like. And now we have that vulnerability-based trust. Thank you for that. Like that was great. This was beautiful. I think from everything from the PowerPoint to the story to the authenticity to the vulnerability, all of it was really well done at an incredibly high caliber presentation. So thank you for a remarkable example of just a great presentation, and obviously the time and effort you put into that, and knowing everything you're going to say, quoting statistics off the slide without looking, like just eyes forward, talking about the things that matter most, and being able to cite off the relevant data points that were addressing the ideas. I thought that was really impressive and very good. So I appreciate just how much effort, how much of yourself you put into this presentation. It did make me think deeply about my own leadership here, not only as a faculty, but as a chair, like in overseeing other faculty. It made me question, like, ooh, how would they rate me? I don't even know if they do rate me, to be honest with you. I don't know if my direct reports do. I'll find out. But it made me wonder, like, what will they say of me? If I asked them, what would they say? And those questions about, have I had a conversation with them recently about authentically inspiring them and checking in with them and listening genuinely to what they're going through and how they're doing. It challenged me in a way that made me think more deeply about what it really means to lead, how much service that requires. So I appreciated that. I think it was a multifaceted presentation with many different levels of thought that we need to. So I appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that wraps us up for the day, right?
Yes.
Wow. That's me. Yep. Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Wow, how delightful. I know we were probably late on. Okay. Thank you all. I will remind you, it is Halloween, so drive safe, walk safely. Most pedestrians get hit at this day. So walk safely if you're gonna walk around. I thoroughly appreciated the full costumes of everyone here. Thank you so much. Great presentations, and I look forward to seeing you next week. All right, take care, be safe.
Can we get a picture?
Yeah.
Oh, picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abraham said yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on, don't get out of the costume.